Hi everyone, Dr. Luqman here, welcoming you all back to the Catster YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking about another exciting cat topic. In today's video, we'll be diving into hairballs. Hairballs, what are they? What causes them? What can you do to make sure your cat does not get hairballs? And so on and so forth. Before we dive into this topic, this is your friendly reminder to please do hit that subscribe button. Please do leave us a like, and of course, we welcome your comments. Now, hairballs tend to be the bane of existence of many cat owners all over the world. And for most cat owners, discovering a hairball is, a harrowing process because they usually find out that their cat has hairballs because their cat one day decides to just retch and usually on a carpet for some hilarious reason, let out, contents from their stomach, which also include a tangle of fur and hair all together in debris and stomach juices and that smell, like that vomit smell, and ta-da, your cat has produced a hairball for you. And this is how most people recognize that their cat has a hairball issue. But what exactly is a hairball? Now, to understand what it is and how it forms, we kind of have to look at what cats naturally do. Cats are very fastidious groomers, and they spend a lot of their waking time grooming themselves. This is actually really normal, and it's something that's instilled into cats from kittenhood. So, even mother cats frequently groom their kittens. So cats are pretty used to grooming themselves, and it's actually considered normal in most cases for cats to spend, a good portion of their waking time grooming themselves. They usually do this either, just after waking up or after a meal. And most people observe it as something like them using their forepaws as like a loofah. So they'll start licking their forepaw, they're going to go over their face, and then they're going to turn around, and they're going to start on their body, and they're going to, focus on areas they want to, or just, basically brush everywhere with their tongue. And their tongue is very good for this. Now, a cat's tongue has papillae, like small raised, something like the teeth on your combs, like that kind of structure. They're called papillae. They're really firm and rigid. So when a cat licks themselves through their fur, they have, the tendency to ingest some of the hair that is loose or falling off, or hair that is shedding. Under normal circumstances, cats will actually pass this hair naturally. So it'll go through their digestive system. It is not really nutritious or anything, so they actually don't bother absorbing it. There's not much to be gained from absorbing hair, so it should pass through naturally. So it goes in one end, it'll eventually come out the other end in normal circumstances. What happens sometimes though is when cats ingest a lot of hair, and hair tends to tangle with itself inside their stomach. Now, hair tangling with itself is not necessarily a strange phenomenon. Actually, if you do have pet cats, especially those with long haired coats, you can see this. It usually pops up in the form of matting. So matted fur is basically fur that's tangling around itself, and it's formed this big clump that your cat cannot undo. And what matted fur does is actually pull in more fur around it till it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and starts pulling your cat's skin, and it becomes really uncomfortable, and then it has to be removed by a vet or a professional groomer. So something similar can happen when your cat ingests a lot of hair in one go and the hair in their stomach begins to tangle up. Again, this is not something that they digest really, so when it tangles up, what can eventually happen is it'll dry up and form almost like a ball or a sphere, hence the word hairball, technically known as trichobezoar. So if you are looking for more literature, that might be a word that you would want to Google on your next, research journey for hairballs and information about hairballs. But anyway, what this hairball does is it keeps growing bigger and it scratches along, the lining of their stomach and sometimes even the lining of their intestine. So like the small intestine, because from the stomach it would naturally progress down towards the small intestine. If it irritates those areas, what your cat's body will naturally do is sense that there's something off and something that cannot be digested and something that needs to be expelled to, restore calm and peace along the digestive tract. So that's what your cat will do. So your cat's solution is going to be to sit down on all fours, possibly retch, hypersalivate, open their mouth, and forcefully expel out contents from their stomach and the earlier portions of their intestines. This is known as vomiting, and the goal of this is actually to expel the hairball out so that your cat can feel comfortable again. And this is the episode where most, pet owners figure out that, oh, my cat actually has hairballs. However, in some rare instances, cats cannot expel the hairball, and there is actually a chance that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger till it forms an actual obstruction somewhere along their digestive tract. And that requires surgery because now it's essentially something that's blocking the movement of food through their digestive system. So, it is somewhat like a very simplified explanation, but you can view the digestive system as sort of one continuous, tube or passageway. So from the mouth all the way to the anus, it's all connected. Definitely food has to go through different chambers at, specified paces, etc. And the digestion process is definitely long, so it's not like it just goes through in 20 seconds or anything. But point being, if there's an obstruction along the way, it basically stops the flow of traffic, and that is very dangerous for your pet. And yes, that does require, surgical intervention promptly. But in most cases, hairballs rarely cause obstructions, but they can be very, very distressing for pet owners and definitely can be distressing for cats as well. Some people actually think that their cat vomiting a few hairballs, a few being perhaps 1 or 2 vomiting episodes every 4 to 6 weeks, is relatively normal. Now, this is an area of debate in the veterinary world because many people consider vomiting itself as not a normal thing, which technically it isn't, because though vomiting serves a purpose of expelling something that may cause harm, the logic behind vomiting is that it's worth the risk because, all the contents of the stomach, the stomach acids and everything, they do actually irritate everything on the way up. So vomiting is not entirely risk-free. And if you've ever had vomiting episodes, you know exactly what the feeling is. After you vomit, you feel like everything's burning for a while. Your cat will feel something similar. So people who do subscribe to that theory claim that, a cat vomiting hairballs, once every month or once every 4 to 6 weeks, is something that should not happen because ultimately this is something that will potentially cause issues for your pet cat. Now this again is, there's no, like I said, there's no absolute right or wrong here. There are arguments on both sides. But it is fair to assume that most pet owners would really love it if their cat was not vomiting hairballs, especially on their carpet or, just for their cat's own health. So let's explore why this even happens in the first place and what you can do if your cat does have hairball issues. Now we kind of hinted at what the underlying cause is with hairballs when we discussed how it forms. Basically, something is causing your cat to consume a lot of their own hair. So what can this be? Either the hair is shedding a lot or your cat is over-grooming themselves due to some reason. Now, why would a cat's hair shed more suddenly? Sometimes it can be normal for a cat to shed more frequently. This happens in temperate environments and it's very common with cats with double or triple coats. Around fall or autumn, either the beginning, middle, or sometimes even the end, depending on where you stay, but around that, that seasonal change, autumn to winter or fall to winter. And winter to spring and spring going into summer, so these two, shifts in temperature generally are what trigger your cats, to actually change their fur coat. Now, obviously, they don't go out and buy something, but essentially, when winter is coming, they would want to regenerate their undercoat. So they will shed the old coat off and get a nice new layer, ideally, to keep warm in the winter. And as spring approaches, they know that summer is around the corner. They don't want to feel so warm, so the undercoat will again shed off. Now, the top coat, also known as your cat's guard hairs, actually do not shed that much and should not shed that much. So most of the time when you're talking about, shedding issues in cats, normally, normal shedding involves, their undercoats. That being said, yes, cats can definitely and do naturally shed their, upper coats as well. But this is more gradual and it's not like a all-in, all-out seasonal kind of thing. It's like individual hairs will fall off at individual times. So that is a normal explanation as to why your cat might be shedding more. And if you live in a temperate environment, and you do realize that seasons are about to change, it is a good idea to stay on top of your cat's grooming and perhaps increase the grooming frequency just to help them dislodge their old fur and essentially have them not ingest too much. So you basically help your cat out. So perhaps, increase the frequency of when you groom them around these seasonal changes. But seasonal shedding is actually perfectly normal for cats in temperate environments. We do have to explore other risk factors. One identified risk factor is if your cat is actually a long-haired cat. So for long-haired cats, their fur is obviously naturally longer. So the odds of this fur tangling with other fur increases when it's inside their stomach just because they're longer. So the odds of something like this long, finding something this long to, make buddies is greater than if they're both like just this length. So that's a logic why, a long-haired cat would be at greater risk of developing hairballs. Again, if you do have a long-haired cat, you do have to stay on top of their, grooming and maintenance pretty much all year round. But that's, one of the joys of having a long-haired cat, and it actually can be a very rewarding experience. So you shouldn't look at it as punishment for yourself or your cat. You should consider it a bonding opportunity because actually most cats do love getting groomed, and you can make it a really fun thing as well. And besides, grooming your cat has other benefits as well and helps you keep a very close eye on the quality of their coat in general. So you can consider this like as a double benefit for your cat. In other instances, your cat may be shedding more hair because of an underlying health issue. The fascinating thing about fur is it is a very good indicator of overall health. So cats that are very healthy usually have a very nice, shiny, beautiful, immaculate fur coat. But cats that have underlying health issues involving pretty much any organ system tend to have a very, very unkempt fur coat. Now, there are some diseases or some pathologies that directly affect the health coat of a cat. So these can be like these can be direct skin-related issues. For example, fleas, mites, ringworm, sporo, so these are fungal infections, other bacterial infections, other yeast infections at times. These can, directly impact the skin, and once they impact your cat's skin, they change the physiological properties of the skin, and this usually is associated with excessive hair loss. In some cases, they may even cause bald spots around your cat's body. But other conditions are actually underlying medical conditions. So for example, some endocrine issues can lead to what we call bilateral symmetrical alopecia. That means your cat tends to lose hair on both sides evenly or like around the same speed in the same area. So it looks very symmetrical. And alopecia is basically, the loss of hair. So your cat actually tends to look like they're usually losing hair around their flanks at a near consistent pace where you almost wonder, is this like a haircut? But it's not, it's an underlying health issue. But again, generally speaking, any sort of underlying health issue can lead to an unkempt coat. One of the reasons why it's very hard to pinpoint the issue is because when cats are unwell, they tend to stop or they tend to reduce the frequency at which they groom themselves anyway. It's something like you being sick with a flu or a fever. It can be something mild, but you don't feel like doing what you usually do. For example, if you wake up every day at a certain time, you have your breakfast at a certain time, you go to work or you go to the gym or you go for swimming, excursions, hiking, whatever. If you're sick, you're definitely not going to feel like doing that. It's very similar for our cats. So it can be something very minor that just, makes the cat not feel well. And when they're not feeling well, they tend to groom themselves less often so that, the coat starts looking a bit unkempt, more hairs begin to dislodge, and when they do recover, they pick up their grooming pace again, and lo and behold, they ingest a lot of hair naturally because they were slacking because they were sick, and you have a cat that may develop hairballs. This is another example of why it's very difficult to pinpoint what's causing excessive shedding on your cat. It's not just excessive shedding that could lead to hairballs. It could also be your cat grooming themselves more because something is bothering them. Again, we cannot discount medical issues here. It can be something simple, like, a flea infestation. So cats with flea allergy dermatitis will have, a sensation of being very itchy whenever fleas bite them. And, what are they going to do when they're itchy? They're going to turn around and start grooming themselves. And in the process, they may ingest more hair than they normally do. Same goes with underlying health issues. Once again, if a cat is uncomfortable or if a cat is in pain, sometimes they do have a tendency to start obsessively grooming themselves. This does not have to do with a specific ailment. In fact, sometimes cats can excessively groom themselves for behavior issues. They can have episodes of stress or anxiety where their coping mechanism is to overly groom themselves. So this is not difficult to appreciate as to why a cat would do this. Kittens, for example, are, whenever a queen, like a mother cat, feels like her kittens are stressed or unwell, she will groom them more frequently. So it is possibly something that they instinctively have in their minds that, when they're not well, they may at times tend to almost obsessively groom themselves more, and in the process they may ingest more hair. Suffice it to say, there are many issues that can affect your cat's coat, and anything that causes your cat's coat to shed more, or anything that causes your cat to groom themselves more frequently, can lead to hairball issues. So how do you actually address hairballs? Well, first things first, as there are many reasons why your cat's fur coat may be having issues, it is imperative to have a veterinarian look over your cat, check your cat, run some tests to make sure that there's nothing sinister going on that is causing your cat to lose all their fur. Now, of course, there are behavior issues as to why a cat may choose to groom more often. But again, it is very important to not jump the gun and assume that your cat has a behavioral issue. It is very important to keep in mind that you need to have your veterinarian's input to make sure that your cat does not have an underlying medical issue. Even if your cat does not have a medical issue, your veterinarian should be your first point of contact if you feel like your cat has a behavior issue. Because your veterinarian can give you advice on how to tackle the behavior issue. They can refer you to a specialist, or they can refer you to, a cat trainer or a cat behavior specialist as well. And these trained professionals can help you retrain and rehabilitate your cat to break some bad habits. Now, nutrition is a very important aspect of tackling hairball issues. Technically speaking, cats do not have a fiber requirement in their diet. That means you could be feeding your cat a diet that is commercial. It is nutritionally complete and balanced for your cat for their life stage, and it will be certified by, let's say, AAFCO if you're in the US, AFCO. For most European countries, it's FEDIAF is the certification. You can be feeding your cat, a complete balanced diet that does not have any fiber, and that is considered fine from a technical point of view because cats do not have a strict fiber requirement in their diets. So these certifications do not require manufacturers to have a certain level of fiber in your cat's diet. However, some cats can definitely benefit from having fiber included in their diet. This does not mean taking any fiber supplement and adding it to your cat's diet, to your liking. Odds are if you take fiber supplements intended for humans and mix it into your cat's diet, you can actually make things worse. Fiber for cats is actually considered a nutraceutical. This means that it has both nutritional value and it has pharmacological effects that may be beneficial in the right dose. Now, in the right dose means that you feed your cat the right amount of fiber and you feed your cat the correct amount of food that they need with that fiber to help, keep their digestive system flowing and smooth and issue-free, which may in turn, help them with hairball issues. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be super complex figuring out what kind of fiber your cat needs. Fortunately, there are commercial cat food options that are intended for cats with hairball issues. So these foods either work by having additional fiber added to them, which, as we just explained, would help your cat, running smoothly, and or they have something in them that will also help enhance your cat's coat. So they may have, additional, ingredients in there that would help with your cat's coat quality. And the logic there being that, a healthier coat would shed less, so it would help with hairball issues. So it's usually one or usually both of these components that make, hairball diets what they are. So that is definitely an option you could consider discussing with your veterinarian if your cat does have, frequent hairball issues. However, if your cat is on a fresh or a homemade diet, Or if your cat is on a raw diet, a sudden transition to a commercial diet might be upsetting for your cat's digestive system. And it may be something that you do not want to do. So for example, if your cat is on a fresh diet, you may be uncomfortable switching them to a commercial diet. And your cat may also be uncomfortable, changing their dietary preference. So in that case, you would have to get the help of a veterinary nutritionist. And your veterinary nutritionist can help modify your cat's diet, by picking out the correct fiber source or sources for your cats and incorporating them safely into their meals. Again, nutrition is a very strong sort of like backbone for hair quality and hair health, because in cats, the fur coat in general is considered a very good health indicator. So the right nutrition definitely does help. So even if your cat does not have hairball issues, but you do feel like their coat is not looking as, spunky and as fresh as it should, it is worth it to explore, nutrition options for your cat, because that actually may help your cat. And of course, if your cat, has food allergies or intolerances, it may definitely cause skin irritation, skin issues, including, hair loss, excessive hair loss, which can, again, snowball into hairballs. Wow, snowball into hairballs. Who would have thought? Okay. Point being, anytime you are trying to address hairballs, it is also worth considering your cat's nutrition. After all, this is an issue that primarily involves the GIT and the skin, both of which can benefit from dietary adjustments and changes. So that's it for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this topic. Once again, this is me, Dr. Luqman, wishing you all a very happy day, year, month, week, etc. I do hope all of you are well. I do hope all your pets are well. Keep it here at the Catster channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.